Ben Kasulke and Sean Nelson. Just to remind everybody, Ben directed the short at the beginning, Lovecraft, and it was also cinematographer for My Effortless Brilliance. So.
And Lovecraft.
Yeah, both.
Yeah. Oh, and Lovecraft as well. Sorry. So we'll bounce around a little bit, and then we're going to call Lynn, who directed the film. Well, first of all, both you pointed to something that both films had in common, which was about basically fucking up relationships and selfish behavior. That's a running theme. And another one is like both are kind of also after the fact. Like the breakup has already happened, and so you're kind of coming into the story at a point that is, an emotional time where there's some regret in there and a desire potentially to try to rectify the damage done there. Whether that means having a relationship that's what it was once or something different. So that was one thing. And also, like in My Effortless Brilliance, another thing that really appealed to me was all that was not said. You get a lot of movies where things are said very blatantly, and I really liked it. And maybe part of that was the way you guys approached with improvisation, but that was something that was very appealing to see for a change.
I agree. It was really tempting to try and kind of be really specific about why those guys kind of resented each other, but I think that it was clear why anyone would, I think, resent my character in a certain way, because he's really sort of self-involved and I think sort of even takes these earnest moments and derails them. I have a lot of complicated thoughts about why that happens, but we did shoot a thing where on the first night I go out to the cabin to visit and I wind up staying. We shot a thing where we went kind of outside looking at the night sky and recorded these sort of long improvs where he said why he hated me, and I said why I hated him, and it was going to be sort of played in voiceover, and it just was obviously wrong. And it was sort of the Basil who played the guy, is it Dylan?
Yes,
Basil Harris, who is a really good friend of mine. When we were putting it together, he was very adamant that we not be super articulate or specific about why we are upset at each other, because he thought that was more like what it's like between guys. And that was something that Lynn really caught into in particular. And I did too. I sort of got accepted as a hallmark of my most difficult friendships, that we do sort of say every possible thing that could be said eventually. But I do think I think it works more both because you have to do some work to kind of figure out what's going on, and also because it's easier to project your own experience onto those guys.
Yeah, I think it would have weakened anyone, an audience approach to that film if you were explicit about what was going on. It's much better to bring that personal experience.
So all the banter was just improvised, or
and we weren't allowed.
It's good banter.
It's pretty good banter.
That's good banter.
We weren't allowed
you guys kind of 24/7.
Yeah, that's sort of what it's like.
Show, yeah.
And that's why I wanted it to be Basil in there with me, just because I feel like a lot of times I've now acted in a handful of these improvised films, and a lot of times they sort of turn on sort of inarticulate naturalism as a style, and I guess that's true to life, but the people I know are generally pretty articulate and funny, and it's not unusual to get into sort of bantery situations with people, and that's sort of really fun. And Basil is incredibly funny. He's a really fantastic actor, and he just, we have no difficulty kind of keeping up with each other and pushing each other onward. And the thing is that those scenes, like the dinner scene, we did, I think, 3 takes, each of which was about an hour long. So, you could have done a whole movie that was just that. I'm not saying it would have been great.
Or watchable.
But it would have been funny.
Funny.
I think.
Did you
largely?
In Lovecraft, it's a different animal, I guess, the short, but and obviously it was not improvised, but it was also did share this damaged relationship and did, I don't know what was, you wrote this, so
I wrote the voiceover. Ben came up with Ben basically sort of had gave me what the images were going to be, and from that we sort of extrapolated what the kind of what the dynamic between the people could be. And I just think, I don't know, I mean, as I get on in years, I notice that relationships that end, sometimes they actually end, but more frequently they really don't ever end, and you kind of can avoid each other for a long time, but there's this other element, especially in the first few months afterwards, you kind of get into this thing where anytime you have a feeling or a thought, you just want the other person to know,
right?
Because there's like a them-shaped hole in your life, and you want to fill it.
Yeah.
And that overlapping dialogue is brilliant, a way of kind of, I think, sort of illustrating that, because you're sharing this language still. Yeah.
We had both the actors read all the lines, and then sort of decided later which one was, because all of them were written to be. I mean, it was sort of, the idea was like, these are text message exchanges or voicemails,
like fragmentary.
Yeah.
You force your will on something.
And in a way, those sort of turn into. I mean, text messages are a funny thing because they are sort of like thoughts, way more than they are, expressed things. Even though they are expressions, they occupy this very odd space, and you can be really frank, and you can really hurt people through text messages, or they can be totally innocuous. It's 3 a.m. and I'm eating mango slices, and I really thought you should know. It's sort of. But
still very self-centered.
Yeah, exactly.
Ultimately, it's just.
They're little id bubbles.
We are going to call Lynn in a moment, but Dan, do you have a question?
A few things. First of all, on that point, the sound editing for Lovecraft was so. There were times when it seemed like a question and answer. Then there's times when it was they had the same thought and it was opposed to brilliant little dynamic there.
That's great that came across. Yeah, this is my first time seeing it from an audience, so it's like there's sort of a question mark for me walking in here, and it's good that it came. Yeah, we wanted some crosstalk and some interpretation,
Which is often what happens with text.
Yeah.
I say
Yeah,
two things,
exactly.
and you just get one in the middle.
Right. Yeah, multiple. Yeah, it only helps kind of create confusion a lot of the times. There's so many variables set up in that kind of texting, which is set up for failure.
It's not necessarily all
No.
text, but
Right,
that is the model,
Yeah.
or like conversations that arise from that.
Yeah, we're just trying to continue this relationship, and even though it's under just self-contained.
And it seemed kind of tragic that they really shouldn't be apart.
Yeah.
It's like the unsaid thing, like, we'll say these things. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you just sort of decide. Someone decides that that's how it's going to be, and that's how it winds up being. But that's still. It's what's interesting at the end, in particular, of Lovecraft, is that they say, "I really hope we can find a way to be in each other's lives," and the thing is, they are. They have found a way. It's just not necessarily that satisfying. But they obviously are both like fixated on each other, in a really romantic way, in a certain sense. It's just longing is painful.
On a very basic level, the name of the Lovecraft, where did you come up with that?
There's a Vaseline song in the score. It's called Lovecraft. And on a whole other level outside the sort of romantic dynamic of the couple in there, this was not too long after Katrina. There was a part of this crosstalk of artists with the New Orleans crew. It was sort of about relationships with water, living in cities that are port cities. And Seattle's had very few disasters in that way. And I was sort of thinking about that and attributing it to this couple. One thing sort of led to another, and that song sort of filtered through a lot of tracks that I was sort of going through that were supposed to be just sort of interstitial kind of wallpaper for this short, and then that came through, and then I think Sean was just like, that's gotta be that's the title.
Well, there was definitely a I have to send this right now. What's the title? And that was of the songs that were in it, that was the one whose title really
stuck
did
out.
fit.
Yeah.
I love that song. It's one of my favorite. It's probably my favorite song of that band. And
Yeah, same.
I have no idea what the words are, really. No idea really what it's about. that word applies. I mean,
Yeah.
love and craft. Those are two important ideas.
Speaking of which, you're going to be doing a gig at Rock
Yeah.
Shop, which is only blocks from here, on
August 7th.
7th.
2 weeks from today. I think. Or is it 1 week? No, 2 weeks from today.
2 weeks.
Yes, I'm a musician also, and I'm doing songs by a guy named Harry Nilsson, who a lot of people, it turns out, don't really know. But
He's from here, isn't he?
he's from Brooklyn. But he's a 60s and 70s singer-songwriter.
One is the loneliest number.
He wrote One is the Loneliest Number.
He's best known for a song he didn't write, actually, which is Everybody's Talking About Me from of course, the soundtrack from Midnight Cowboy. He did not write it, but he, of course, made it very famous.
His other big
And,
hit, he didn't write either, which is Without You by there's a Badfinger song. He has this big #1 hit with it, and it was not his song. But then he wrote songs that other people had hits with, like one, Three Dog Night, and the Monkees recorded some of his songs. And
Right.
anyway, he was a really interesting, weird guy, and I'm doing a set of his songs with some friends there at the Rock Shop on the 7th. So I hope you'll
It's
all
on Fourth
consider
Avenue
coming.
nearby.
When is that?
August 7th.
So why don't we call Lynn, since
Yeah,
we
let's give her a
promised
call.
her, and she's probably sitting there. Lynn Shelton. She has she's currently, well, we'll talk about it a little bit too. She's currently finishing up her most recent new film, My Sister's Sister.
Also shot by Ben.
What a coincidence.
I know. It's 5 years, 6 years.
Are there any
running.
other questions while we get her on the horn?
Fill the void here.
No other questions?
Yeah, Adam, you know what the thermostat is?
Sorry?
You know what the thermostat is?
Oh, is everybody freezing? Yes, I do actually. Let me turn it off.
How soon we forget.
That's legitimate.
We might end up needing a microphone for this.
Actually, one comment about Williams, the fact that I'm so glad you didn't have that conversation with Williams.
Hey, Shelton, it's Ben.
Yeah.
Hi.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We're about to speak.
And then you don't.
Thundering sounds.
Yeah,
Awesome.
but there, I think in the reactions between
there's going to be a little bit of
us,
microphone action.
there is weirdly communication. I think there is, like, we're both sort of thinking. We're both thinking something, and I think the closeness between the friends makes you think that maybe you're both thinking the same thing, something like that.
And we've all been there, so it's kind of interesting too. Like you said,
Got her on, Adam.
it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Hi, Lynn. It's Adam.
I agree.
Hi.
I'm glad
So,
I came through.
so we're sitting here, Ben, Sean, and myself, and our audience. Let me just.
Yeah, go to the ear hole.
Let's get some mic check from Lynn Shelton.
Yes.
It's up here.
It's last time.
Oh, is it? No, that's the. Oh yeah. No, I think it's down on the bottom.
I think so. Lynn? Hold on. See, I think you're right. Keep going. We're trying to get the perfect mic check here. Go ahead. Can you say something?
Hello.
Keep talking. It's down here for sure.
Speaker.
Yes.
Everybody's a goddamn.
I know. Hello? Can you hear us? Yeah. Can everybody hear her?
Can anybody?
All right. Sorry about that. Hi. Wait. You just had a little.
Lynn Shelton, ladies and gentlemen.
We just had a screening of one of your films, My Effortless Brilliance. Are you familiar with that film?
Oh, you know what's funny? I just watched it in Union.
There it is.
You all. I haven't seen it for a couple years, so I thought I would remind myself of it. And it's something about the giving.
Excellent.
She says she liked it.
It was brilliant.
Let's try this.
Oh yeah, pop it off.
Let's get this cover right
Wow.
out of there.
We're fiddling with this for a second.
Hold tight.
Technology will destroy us all.
Well, we're going to do a Skype. We were going to do a Skype session, but
We weren't quite
set up for that yet. Bear with us, Lynn.
How's
One
your
second.
speakerphone?
Let's call her right back.
Lynn, we're gonna call you right back from Sean's phone. It's gonna be way better. I promise.
And then we'll just go around and call it from everybody's phone.
Yeah, we should to call you.
For a conference call, you can also hear that on that one.
I'm gonna. By the way, folks.
By the way, I'm also going to, just by the way, we have a tin here, And whatever donations you can make would be appreciated. And if you are not on my mailing list, please sign up so you can like learn all about all the things that I'm doing with Filmwax, etc. Thank you.
All right, this time, let's do it. Check that out. Go say something, Lynn.
Hi,
Much better.
everybody.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's much better. Thank you for your patience, Lynn.
You're very welcome.
Okay, great. Yes. So Lynn, where are you right now?
I'm sitting on my bed in my house in Seattle, Washington.
Seattle,
Where are you
Washington.
guys?
Yeah, we are sitting on our bed in Park Slope. We are in Park Slope, Brooklyn.
Perfect.
Yes.
What are you wearing?
In the melting zone. Did you have air conditioning for the screening, or?
That's yes. It's funny you
Too
should mention.
much air conditioning.
Yeah, we have yes, an abundance of air conditioning. I turned it down a little bit or turned it up, whatever. Yeah, but we're okay. We're surviving the heat wave here. Anyway,
Well, keep hydrated.
thank you.
Yes, are there any questions? What are we doing?
Well, we have been talking a little bit about Lovecraft and about my Effortless Brilliance, and I just first of all want to thank you so much for participating and find out maybe a little bit also. We lost her.
What?
We lost her.
Call back.
We're gonna call back again. Sorry, guys.
Everybody try and come up with one
Did we
special
call mobile?
question for Lynn.
Mobile?
Yes.
Unbelievable question.
Whose dog is that, by the way?
That's my brother Charlie's dog, Stella.
dog?
No, it's there's a picture of Stella on my phone.
Okay, this should work now. Sorry about that.
She's a good girl.
Very good.
Floppy ears.
If we lost her, her bed is in her basement.
Oh.
No,
Best ears.
no, we lost our signal for
Oh.
a second.
This is not amazing.
Oh, hello!
Sorry about that. It must be the heat. Anyway,
It must be.
so how did you meet Sean Nelson and Ben Kasulke? Just like two brief anecdotes here. How did you come together? Because this is obviously a great relationship. All
Well,
around.
Ben was the cinematographer for my very first film.
We go
way
with-
back.
and you do
he
now.
He was on staff of the film company, which was a nonprofit film studio that he can tell you about. And so he shot my first film because it was produced by that production company. And he's pretty much shot every single thing since then that I've ever made, except for maybe one music video. But we've worked together a lot in the 5-6 years
Samantha?
since then.
Didn't shoot
Kind of
that.
hit it off. And then Sean and I, how the hell did we meet? We were in a play together, sort of.
We were in a musical.
Yeah, we were in a musical, but we weren't in scenes together. We just kind of remember chatting with you backstage. And then I asked you to come speak in one of my classes. I used to teach, and then you wrote something nice about me. You were writing for a while for The Stranger. So anyway, we were sort of nodding acquaintances, and then Sean was the music supervisor. I asked him to be the music supervisor for my first feature film, and we had a lot of great interaction with that experience. And I don't know, it was funny. I'd never seen him. I guess I'd seen him act in that play, but I wanted something much more naturalistic from him in this movie. And I don't know, I just had an inkling that he would be great as the center of a film. And I think I was right.
This is maybe a narrow-minded question. Well, what compelled you to create a movie of just guys sitting around, just sort of resenting each other with absolutely no real female perspective except for maybe a short moment there with the journalist, quote unquote. But other than that, it's just guys. It's not typical.
Yeah, well, I mean, my idea was that I wanted to make a piece of work around custom designed for, I wanted to figure out who I wanted to work with and then custom design a piece for them. And so the person that I started with was Sean, and he is a man. I don't know if you've noticed. And the theme I was interested in that he seemed to be interested in as well was friendship,
Mhm.
And then for me, it was like almost like a sociological. I felt like a sociologist, some North American sociologist who goes to the jungles of the Amazon to study a tribe there. I was just sort of an observer, and I was all improvised. I wasn't trying to write dialogue for these, guys in their late 20s, early 30s. I was just letting them speak the way they would normally speak. I tried to be a fly on the wall and kind of almost approach it like a documentary filmmaker in a way. It was endlessly compelling and fascinating for me, but it was kind of like, a brave new world.
Yeah.
I am not usually privy, to what goes on inside of the cabin with just 3 guys.
Well, I think, I think if you haven't seen, I'm talking to the people in the audience, if you haven't seen Hump Day, go see it. Because the one common theme that exists, and you're kind of touching on something that exists in both, which is, these things between guys who are trying to kind of connect as friends, and it's not always so sort of cut and dry and clear how, because, I mean, there's almost like a homoerotic theme there, but there really isn't.
Almost, sure.
I mean, it's like this thing about guys who, trying to relate and be close and yet, are unable. And Hump Day actually goes one step further. I'm not going to go into the detail about that, but there's a moment in My Effortless Brilliance where it's actually Basil says, is it Basil?
Yeah.
Says, why does it have to be so
Why
hard?
is this shit
Why
always
is
so
this
fucking
so?
hard?
Yeah.
That's
I mean
my
that.
line, I think.
Okay. Yours.
That's fine.
Okay. You're almost
It doesn't
interchanged.
have to be all about
You're
me.
almost interchanged. That's big of you.
I mean, it could be, but
Yeah. But I know you have a new movie called My Sister Sister, so maybe that's you've kind of departed with that whole running theme, or I don't know. But
Well, I Mike Lee used to get asked about why he made films about women, and he said, I don't make films about women, I make films about people. And that's like such a great answer. I'm not, my first film was a total chick flick. I mean, it was definitely about women, but men can relate to it too, I'm told. I'm just interested in people and relationships, and especially people who, that incredibly intense desire to connect to other human beings, and the awkwardness of how often it's not an easy thing. It really isn't. There are so many obstacles that come up, usually within ourselves, if nothing else. But I find that territory endlessly poignant and compelling, and whether it's girls or boys or a mix thereof. So it just turned out that with My Effortless Brilliance, I wanted to work with Sean, and with Hump Day, I started with Mark Duplass, and they are men, and so it ended up being men were the center of those films. So it just sort of depends on who I sort of centered the film around. It wasn't really intentional at all.
got it. So
it's the mic.
There we go. Now, we have any questions for Lynn? Anybody have any questions for Lynn?
Oh, I know what my sister's about.
There's we have a question about your new film and what that's about. My Sister Sister.
It's actually your sister.
Your sister. That's what I okay. I was going to suggest a new title. Basically. Your Sister Sister.
Your sister, and I don't mean to be too vague, but basically it's about, there's 3 main characters, 2 women, Rosemary DeWitt and Emily Blunt play sisters, and Mark Duplass plays the character that Emily plays, best friend, and they end up having an unexpected weekend together in a little house. That's a theme.
Yes.
See. In the San Juan Islands of Washington State, there's a sort of remote location, and so it's another sort of interpersonal drama, comedy/drama that takes place.
Where you isolate the
in
characters.
Another beautiful location in Washington State, but I can't go into too much detail.
Yeah.
It's basically Mark sort of gets in between the 2 sisters, but it's not
And
a love triangle.
Emily Blunt was in the the
Devil Wears Prada.
Devil's Prada. Thank you. And Rosemary was in The Wedding.
Rachel Getting Married.
which was beautiful.
And Mad Men.
I know. And Mad Men, whatever, you know. Little TV series, not going to go anywhere. But okay, great. Yeah, well, it sounds like a lot of fun. All right, well, thank you very much, and for you know, and yeah, no, I really appreciate your being available. Unless there are any more questions for Lynn, we'll let her go back to bed, and
Yeah, it is. It
five?
is
It's
5:30 in the
5:05.
afternoon.
Yes, exactly.
She needs her rest.
It's true.
Like beauty sleep. Yeah, thanks for coming, everybody. I wish I could be there in person. But
Next-
thanks for looping me in
Next.
via phone.
Yeah, no, thanks. Okay, thanks very much, Lynn.
Bye, Lynn.
Bye. Oh, there you go. Rousing. Thank you very much for
No
that.
problem.
Yeah. So what's up? What's coming up with you guys? Projects? Oh, projects-wise.
You want to go first?
Well, you're here for the rest of the summer, more or less.
I'm
right?
here for another 3 weeks. As mentioned at the beginning, I made a movie with my friend Steven called Treatment, which Ben also shot, interestingly. That played at the Tribeca Film Festival and has played at a couple other festivals and will continue to play at some. And we're, I think, circling the airport of getting distribution for it, and we may actually have something put together. So I'm hoping that becomes available. He and I are working on a new movie now, writing a new one, and I just wrote one also with Josh Leonard, who is in Treatment and in Hump Day, and in the Blair Witch Project, and in Shark Night 3D. Actually, it turns out.
I believe Ben Kasulke shot that.
he just did the shark effects.
Yeah.
So we just wrote kind of a lowbrow mainstream comedy that has nothing to do with feelings. And yeah, I've done a little bit of acting here and there, and I would like to do more, and I'm doing music, and that's all that I have to say for myself.
I'm here for 3 more weeks shooting a series for Adult Swim and working with some great kind of multimedia artists from Brooklyn doing that. And then I go back to Seattle and shoot a feature with a choreographer named Dana Hansen, who's sort of an old Seattle friend. She's doing her first feature. And then after that, I think I've got another feature in Hibbing, Minnesota, sort of along the lines of this, very low budget. And I'm kicking around a few feature ideas. I'm waiting to hear what you guys come up with.
Our thing's good.
I'm sure it
It's
is.
an ace.
Yeah. And then I got sort of a couple festival dates secured for some projects that were finished in the last year. So we'll be doing a little festival tour in the fall, and hopefully that'll continue into the winter. I'm waiting for some post-production to wrap up on things that were shot over the previous winter.
Well, let me repeat that it means a lot to me and to for you guys to have come out and to
Thank you so
spend-
much for
that's
putting this
awesome.
together. It's really, this movie is sort of, it was a huge turning point in my life. We shot it 4 years ago, and really everything that could possibly have changed in my life has changed since then, and changed back, and then changed again. It's really nice I hadn't looked at it in at least 2 years, maybe longer, and
3 for me.
I just it's nice to be able to watch it and still laugh and still think it holds up and stuff. But it's just nice for it to have a life. Little movies like the ones that we have been making, sort of, they're so fun to do, and they exist in film festivals. And even when we were lucky enough to get distribution and even be on DVD from IFC, which is a totally great, reputable company, but still you feel like you get lost in this huge, ocean of other movies. So it's nice. Thank you guys so much for coming out and to you for putting it together.
I do have one more question.
Yes.
The conversation while you're walking in the woods.
Yeah.
You had your winter group.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were the one laughing at that. I
All
called
the
it.
spontaneous, right?
Actually, yes, but that was recorded later
Right.
because we lost a lot of the audio in the woods.
Okay.
But it was still spontaneous. I'm pretty certain, because we went from werewolf to then Frankenstein, which was sort of a Mr. Show reference, and then what about Edgar Winter's Frankenstein, and then
Shelley
Basil
Winters.
came out with the Shelley Winters line. That's
This is
just
the best joke ever.
possibly the best joke in the film, arguably.
We'll never get the mortar.
Yes.
What camera was used?
That was the Panasonic HVX 200. There was 3 of them. Myself, one other camera operator named Nate Miller, and then Lynn shot third camera. And this was done very quickly and very cheaply.
I think 7 or 8 days. all told, shooting.
Yeah, the whole film, and shot in order,
Yeah.
so that as the characters developed and the plot lines developed, they could incorporate things that had happened from previous
Without a
days of
script,
shooting.
it's hard to shoot out of order, I would imagine.
Yeah,
I can imagine
just
that.
present
I mean, you
some
could-
of
you
the
Just,
could-
especially if you're trying to.
Well, I mean, because we knew the event, but
Yeah, right.
yeah. And yeah, the total budget was like what people pay for rent in Manhattan monthly. So it was
catering on a larger movie for
Yeah,
a week.
it's true. It was really
I
inexpensive.
think studio films are cheaper, frankly. Yeah.
Sean, I'm just curious, like, because the acting was so real, very fluid, and then the writing, Lovecraft, you know, that was great. How did you make the transition from the songwriter, you know, into that? At what point were you like, oh, I'm interested in getting into film?
I actually started off wanting to be in film, and I went to NYU Film School for more than 1 semester, less than 2 semesters. And I just sort of, that was 20 years ago.
Right.
And at that time, even though a lot of people were talking a lot about independent film and being like a guerrilla DIY kind of thing, it still cost so much money to make a movie that it just literally seemed impossible to me. It seemed impossible for me to find someone who was going to give me $2 million to make a movie that looked terrible and was terrible. But you know, like I felt I was a defeatist. I did not believe in myself, and so I moved to Seattle not long after I dropped out of school, actually almost immediately, and I sort of didn't know what to do. But Seattle was at that time really the epicenter of youth culture, and everyone I met was in a band, and I always secretly wanted to do music, but I didn't really know how. And so I sort of went into that because you could do it without permission, and you could do it for no money, and you could just do it. And it took several years of doing that until I felt confident. But all along, I sort of secretly felt like, well, I mean, obviously, film is where I will go. But then I wound up having a career doing music, and I still do that, and I still really like it. It doesn't feel, I guess what I'm saying is it doesn't feel like a huge transition creatively. They feel like slightly different, like related muscles, like
Right.
bicep and tricep or something.
Yeah, you're an artist, and it's just a different medium of art that you enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, I maybe shy away from using that word, but I think it's fair. I mean, I think it's true. I mean, I just sort of like writing.
And it's funny you say that, because like I spent the past 4 years in Seattle where everybody was in a band, you know, I'm a musician. I've been here for 3 months, and now everyone I've met is in a band.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they're all like, oh, you're a musician, sure, you should be.
You're in the right
You wanna get
borough
into
for that,
film?
yeah. But it was because of Lynn, actually. I mean, Lynn asked me to do it, and frankly, I mean, I grew up going to film sets. I always had a lot of fun doing it, and I always had some friends who were involved in filmmaking, and I always was sort of like face up against the glass, you know, like really wanting to do it, but I felt like if I tried and failed, then I would know something about myself that I was not prepared to fully know. And so I waited until someone asked me, and it took 4 years. But it happened, so let that be a lesson to you all. Wait around, and good things will happen.
How did this happen?
That's a little booklet, monograph.
Words.
There's a series of these books called 33 1/3, which each one is about a different record. And I wrote that one about Joni Mitchell's Court and Spark. That came about because I love that series, and I really wanted to write one.
Yeah.
And so I wrote to the editor. A couple of friends of mine had written one. Colin Malloy from the Decemberists wrote one about the Replacements album Let It Be, and my friend Mike wrote one about My Bloody Valentine. I knew a couple, and Franklin Bruno wrote the one about Elvis Costello's Armed Forces.
Yeah, no, it's terrific. It's like it's darn near scholarly. I mean,
Yeah,
but you
it's
know,
pretty pointy-headed for me. My stuff, but
Yeah.
my one is. It is. I just read
But-
it again recently.
yeah.
But I
And-
sent a letter and an email to the
it
editor.
actually gets to court spark about in the last 10 pages. I
Yeah.
think, but that's the beauty of it. You know.
But I've sent an email to the editor saying, here are 3 pitches that I would like to do. Oh, and by the way, here's 50 other titles that I could write something about. And he said of all those, Court and Spark was the one that seemed most likely to pass muster with the committee. So I said, I'll do that one. Not my favorite Joni Mitchell album. I like it a lot, but
Yeah,
that's why I
it's
write
a
about all the
beautiful
other
one,
ones
top
in it
4.
too. Yeah.
For the roses, I think.
For the Roses? I think For the Roses, yeah, I make that case.
Anyway, I'm gonna let you guys go. I appreciate your. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll be showing treatments eventually, I'm sure.
Eventually.
And
There'll be stuff coming.
you know, yeah, we'll continue on.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, no,
Thank you, sir.
You problem.